right, Kyle's unpopular takes. This is one of those takes where my position is popular if you poll the entire country, but where I generally fit on the political spectrum and the political camp that I'm normally in, my take is wildly unpopular in this camp, in left-wing political junkie circles. So it's the issue of immigration and borders. Now, very simply, I don't think borders are inherently bigoted or racist or xenophobic or problematic. I actually think borders are necessary. And the reason I say that is it's very simple. It's for organization's sake and process sake and administering good government sake. So obviously the further away you get from a local population, the harder it is to govern and the harder it is to have a streamlined, efficient process. So in this country, for example, we have Social Security and Medicare. That goes to old people. The only way you can have a functioning welfare state and those programs work is to have borders. And so you limit the number of people who can get those programs. There's an old saying, you could either have a welfare state and borders or no welfare state and no borders. And this is something that libertarians, hardcore right-wing Ayn Rand-style libertarians, have understood for a long time. In fact, they are in favor of open borders. And they're in favor of open borders because they know it would effectively destroy the welfare state if you open the borders up. Bernie Sanders had a very famous quote that open borders is a Koch brothers proposal because they, of course, want access to what they view as cheap labor that can undercut American workers and can lower pay. So there are some left activists, there's some left politicians, although none of them have actually proposed open borders, but there are some left activists who are open about the fact that they say, no, I want open borders. And there's others who don't say they want open borders, but the logical consequence of the policies that they argue for are open borders. So if you say, I want to ban all deportations, I want to stop all deportations, and that was a left ask of Biden when Biden got into office, prevent all deportations, promise to stop all deportations. Well, stop and think about that. That means anybody who comes into the country at any time, by definition, cannot be kicked out, which means they have to be allowed to stay. That is open borders. You are asking Joe Biden to basically do open borders. Now, I'm not saying that Obama wasn't too harsh and restrictive on immigration. He was. He broke the deportation record. I'm not saying that Biden isn't too much like Trump on immigration. He is. And they're not humane and they're not altruistic and they don't abide by human rights and civil rights. So I'm not saying there's not stuff to critique there. But I am saying that, am I okay with deporting proven violent criminals? Absolutely I am. Absolutely I am. I have no problem with that whatsoever. So would I ban all deportations? No. Because again, I don't believe in having open borders. So if you want to have a functioning welfare state, and I do, I'm a huge fan of the welfare state, you have to have borders. And what I would say is a nation state exists because we haven't come up with a better way to do this thing. We haven't come up with a better way to live and function in a civilized society. And it's like the least bad of all bad options. So to abolish all borders and attempt to abolish the state, I mean, maybe in some future utopian system where we've evolved much more than we are now, we can make that come to fruition, but certainly not now. And I don't think that states are inherently oppressive by their very nature. I think it depends on the details. The devil's in the details. It depends on what you actually do with your government and with your nation state. So if your nation state is providing healthcare and education and paid vacation time by law and good benefits, if you have a Scandinavian-style system, I would argue that's really not that oppressive at all. In fact, they don't do oppressive foreign policy either. So in many ways, they're nation states that are functioning in a moral way, you could argue, in an ethical way. So I think this is one of those issues where, again, most Americans would agree with me that borders can exist and you can have a process when it comes to immigration and you can vet people and you can determine who's allowed in and who's not allowed in. Refugees, obviously, should definitely get their day where you listen to them and make the decision accordingly. But left activists, many of them are open and honest with the fact that they want open borders, and many of them, just the logical consequence of the policies that they push for would be open borders. I don't think that's popular. And I don't think that makes sense, you know? But the final point I'll make is this. I still do, though, even though I believe in borders and I believe in having a process for immigration, I do think we should lean heavily on the side of be humanitarian, be altruistic, be just when determining who can come in and who can't come in. Because, yeah, there are most people who are fleeing some country, wherever it may be, they're fleeing violence and oppression, and they're looking for an opportunity to make their life more peaceful and secure. And all of the data shows that immigrants and refugees that come into this country, they almost live the American dream even more than Americans live the American dream. Like the crime rate among both documented immigrants and undocumented immigrants is much lower than native-born American citizens. So stop and think about that. The whole stereotype of like they're violent and they commit crimes, that's fundamentally not true according to the data. The overwhelming majority of them are good people who are just trying to get by and do the right thing. And very rarely do people actually want to leave the place of their birth, where, you know, they want to leave everything they know and go to a place with a different language and all that stuff. That's very rare. So there's usually a really good reason why people are leaving. So, you know, if I was in control of the system, we'd have a vetting process and we'd be intelligent about it and we weed out violent criminals. But, you know, be humanitarian, be altruistic, believe in civil rights, believe in human rights, believe in justice. And if people, you know, pass through the vetting process, then you let them in and even give them citizenship. So I'm not arguing for let's have borders and be really tough on immigration and really tough on refugees or whatever. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying the concept of a border is okay and is not inherently oppressive. And the concept of vetting and determining who can and can't come in is also okay. So again, these things might seem relatively obvious to you if you're watching this. That just means you're more in the camp of most Americans. But I run usually in left circles. And in left circles, sometimes the position I'm taking is viewed as, I don't know if people would say bigoted, xenophobic, and words that are that harsh, but they might say too restrictive. They might say too conservative or too moderate. I disagree. And I think it actually, to one extent or another, is sort of political suicide to get out there and openly argue for open borders. No left Congress people argue for open borders. Some of them argue for policies that the effect is kind of open borders, but none of them really argue for open borders. There's a reason why. Because it's really unpopular in the entire country. And also, I just think it's not a good idea. So anyway, there you have it. That's my take on immigration and borders. Got to keep myself honest, got to keep you guys honest. And my job is not just to come out here and tell everybody exactly what they want to hear. My job is to come out here and tell you exactly what I think, give you news and information and give you exactly what I think. And here's one where, you know, perhaps I, with my audience, might not be the most popular, but got to tell you exactly what I feel.